You know that weird moment when the dangerous thing suddenly looks small and helpless, and your brain has to decide which story to believe? The one about monsters or the one about families. It really makes you wonder what would happen if just once someone chose to walk toward the thing everybody else is trying to lock away. Because that's what this is about. A kid from a so-called death world, a station full of species who think humans are half legend, and a mother creature the files describe as apex threat, who is actually bleeding on a lab floor, searching for her lost young. So, get comfortable however you are right now, because we're going up to an academy hanging above a blue-white star, where fear is written into the safety protocols, and one quiet scholarship student is about to break every rule those protocols were built on. His name is Daniel Reed. He steps off the shuttle with a worn pack, a ranch song stuck in his head, and this stubborn belief that nothing is born a monster. By the time the sirens start howling through Helix 7, he'll be on his knees at an open vent, holding out his hand to two shaking alien cubs, while their wounded mother, all black fur and hidden claws, drags herself closer in the dark. By the time the story of Daniel Reed spread through Helix 7, the station had already filed it as a containment incident, with no casualties. That was the official line. It did not mention the way alarms fell quiet around a human voice singing an old ranch song from Montana. It did not mention the two alien predator cubs who decided that this strange, soft-smelling death world kid was not prey, not rival, but something closer to an older brother. It did not mention the way a wounded mother, all black fur and hidden claws, pressed her nose to a human palm and chose trust over rage. And it did not mention how a whole academy, built high over a blue-white star, had to admit that fear had been wrong. Tonight, we sit with that small, quiet story. We are in the silent halls with the soft hum of life support around us. We watch Daniel step off the shuttle, carrying his worn pack and his stubborn belief that nothing is born a monster. The alarms are still far in the future. For now, there is just a boy from Earth, a station full of careful strangers, and a feeling that something gentle is about to change everything. Take a slow breath. Let's go to Helix 7. The first thing Daniel noticed was the light. Helix 7 floated above a hard, sharp star, bright blue-white. But inside the station, the light was soft. It washed along the curved halls like late afternoon in his grandparents' barn, even though there was no sky, no dust, no smell of hay. He stood just past the airlock, pack straps digging into his shoulders, trying not to stare. The welcome ring opened around him like a circle of slow rivers. Clear walls showed the star, thin cargo ships, and the long spine of Helix 7 curling away into the distance. The station really did look like the pictures. A great metal spiral winding around a central axis, like a double helix in old biology vids. People moved along the walkways in smooth lines, not just humans. At least 4 species in the first 10 seconds. On his left, 2 tall, narrow students flowed past, their pale scales catching the light. Their steps made no sound. Their eyes, solid deep green, flicked toward him and then away. Death World Kid, The taller Nera clicked in its own language. Not quite quiet enough. Daniel's implant caught the word and gave him a soft translation in his ear. Deathworld. He tried not to shrink under it. He had known back on Bozeman's cracked sidewalk that this would happen. Earth had storms, big predators, parasites, heavy gravity. To the rest of the Academy network, that made humans seem tough and scary, dangerous. He breathed in through his nose and out through his mouth, the way his mom had taught him before exams. "I'm just Daniel," he said, under his breath. His voice sounded small in the open ring. He walked to the registration console. A hollow sign floated above it. Galactic. Academy Station. Helix 7. To A. Pay. Acadie. AKN. The station AI asked, voice smooth and calm. Daniel Reed, Xenobiology Scholarship, Year Entry 2289, from Earth, North American Union. Bozeman. A small image blinked into the air. His application photo, brown hair too long, gray hoodie, wide eyes. Below it, text scrolled in several alphabets. His file confirmed. Homeworld. Earth. Classified. Deathworld. Welcome, student Daniel Reed, the AI said. Room assignment sent to your wristband. Your primary mentor is Professor Half. Orientation begins in 12 minutes in Dome 3. Do you require guided escort? No thanks, he said. I like to find things. He caught himself before he said, sniff around. Maybe not the best phrase here. He stepped away from the console and joined the flow of students. His boots made tiny clicks on the floor grid. The station's gravity was just a little lighter than Earth's. Each step felt easy, like walking downhill. As he walked, he studied the others, the way he had studied elk and hawks back home. Careful, quiet, from the corner of his eye. A group of humans laughed near a window. Their words were familiar, but their clothes were strange. Sleek station fabrics, sharp lines, bright academy badges. He almost moved toward them, then saw how they all carried themselves. Relaxed and already at home, he felt the old shyness pull him back. Behind him, a short student with thick fur and big dark eyes struggled with a trunk on a small grav sled. The sled bumped the floor and squealed. Need help? Daniel asked. The furred student blinked up at him, startled. No harm. No harm. Unit is misaligned. The accent was heavy, but clear. Daniel reached down and nudged the sled's sensor. It beeped and floated a little higher. Try now, he said. The student tested it. The sled rose, smooth this time. Gratitude. They said, here's tipping forward. Their gaze slipped to his wristband display, saw the small Earth icon, and paused. You are human. Yeah, Daniel gave a tiny shrug. I don't bite. Their ears twitched in what might have been a nervous laugh. I have read of your world. It is intense. That's one word for it, Daniel said. He thought of winter storms howling over the plains. of cougars watching from the tree line. It's also pretty. Big skies. Lots of birds. Rel seemed to search for a response, then just nodded and steered their sled away. Daniel let out a breath. He found the lift tube and stepped in. A soft field grabbed him, turning his stomach for a moment as the car slid along the station's inner curve. Transparent walls showed more of the Helix structure. Rings of habitats, labs, greenhouses. Greenhouses, rangs, tiny transport pods, zipped along rails. Far below, the bright star burned. Orientation, Dome 3, he said. Confirmed, the lift answered. His reflection in the glass looked pale. Brown hair, cut short before he left. Strong shoulders from years of ranch work. Hands with faint scars from fences and stubborn animals. Deathworld kid, he thought, as if that was all he was. The lift opened to a wide, bright dome. Dome 3 was an observation space and lecture hall combined. Tiered seats ringed a central hollow stage. Above, clear panels looked out over the star. The light here was dimmer tinted blue. Calming, students filled half the seats already. Snatches of many languages floated through the dome, softened by the sound-baffling panels. A few heads turned as Daniel entered. Some eyes lingered on the Earth icon on his badge. The feeling was not like a threat. No one stepped toward him. No one bared teeth. It was more like being the strange animal at a county fair, the one in the wrong pen. He chose a seat near the side, halfway up. Not hidden, not in front, just there. His wristband buzzed. A message blinked. Mom. Connected. He tapped. Accept. Her face appeared, small and clear, near his hand. Behind her, he could see the old kitchen in Bosman. Wooden cabinets, a messy fridge, morning light coming in through the window. Danny. Her voice was too loud in his earbuds. He dropped the volume. Hey, Mom. You made it? She leaned close to the camera. Air? Gravity? You still have all your fingers? He smiled, all present. Gravity's fine. Air smells like cleaning bots. Any trouble? She asked. He could see the crease between her eyebrows. Not really. He glanced around at the dome. A few students looked his way and then away again. They know him from Earth. People stare a bit. It's okay. You remember what Grandpa said? She replied. Cows spook easy, even at a hat in the grass. Doesn't mean the hat means harm. Yeah, he watched a teacher enter the dome below, setting up hollow controls with slow, expert hands. In the hat, I guess. You're my kid, she said firmly. And you're good with anything that breathes. They'll see that. He nodded, throat tight. Give Grandpa a hug for me. He says, if any of those fancy aliens want to know how to treat a creature right, you show them the video of you nursing that coyote pup. Mom, he groaned, but he was smiling. Orientation starting. I should go. Fine. Fine. Call later. And Daniel, am proud of you. Her voice softened. Remember, most folks are scared of what they don't know. Ill try, he said. The call ended. The main hollow sprang to life. A model of Helix 7 turned slowly over the center of the dome. Bright labels marked housing rings, research sectors, docks, and a glowing red zone labeled High Security Bioscience/Containment. Daniel's eyes caught on that red ring. A tall figure moved onto the stage. The teacher's skin had a faint blue tint under the lights, and a soft frilled crest ran from the top of their head, down their neck. Their eyes were dark and kind. Students of Helix 7, they said, voice carried evenly to every ear by the dome's systems. I am Warden Chulaus. Welcome. So this was the warden, the person in charge of safety and major choices on the station. Tulos spoke about rules in calm, clear lines. No weapons, no unauthorized entry into restricted labs. Respect all species. The words flowed around Daniel like a gentle river. He had to remember each stone. When Tulos reached the slide of the high-security bioscience sector, the red ring brightened. In this sector, they said, we hold samples that could present danger if released without care. You will have no need to enter this area unless your advanced studies are approved for it. Many years from now, trust the barriers, trust the staff, and above all, trust that fear is useful only when balanced by knowledge. Daniel leaned forward. Fear is useful only when balanced by knowledge. He liked that. It sounded like something his grandfather might have said if Grandpa had been born in space instead of on a Montana ridge. After Tulos finished, smaller mentors stepped up to call out groups. First-year xenobiology, Professor Halv, said a calm voice. Daniel stood and followed the label. Down a side ramp, he found a cluster of students around a short figure with gray skin and 4 gentle eyes. Professor Halv wore a simple vest and held a data slate. Xenobiology students, Halv said. Their voice was light and musical, but steady. I am Halv. We will learn together how life has solved its problems on many worlds. We will ask, always, not how dangerous is this being, but what does it need to live? Daniel felt something unknot inside him. Halv's top pair of eyes landed on him. The lower pair flicked to his badge, saw Earth, and then came back to his face. Daniel Reed, Halv said. From Earth. I have read your application essays. His cheeks warmed. Oh. I hope that's okay. You wrote about a bear that did not hurt you, Halv said. You wrote that your fear was large, but your choice was larger. That was interesting. He remembered the big shape in the forest, the way he had backed away slow, heart-pounding, not raising his hands, not throwing a rock, just making space. The bear was just living. I was in its home. Halv's mouth curved in a small smile. We will talk more. For now, make sure you find food and rest. First class is tomorrow at 9th bell. They glanced around the group. And remember, the station is safe. There has not been a major containment failure in 17 years. Daniel's gaze slipped again, just for a moment, toward the distant red ring labeled bioscenes on the tiny hollow sign. Safe, he thought. He did not know yet that those words would soon be tested by a mother from a dark forest world, sharp as night and just as beautiful, and by the small sounds of crying that he would not be able to ignore. The alarms began during lunch on Daniel's third day. He was sitting alone near a long window, tray balanced on his knees, watching a freighter slide past the star. The food was better than he had expected. Nutri-grain, something like stew, crisp green sheets that his implant called sea leaf. He stirred the stew without really tasting it. Most of the tables nearby were full. Human voices rose and fell beside Nera chittering, and the soft clicks of other languages. Every so often, someone's gaze brushed past him and then moved away, like a flashlight beam skipping over a rock. He had just started to hum to himself, an old Montana song about wide fields, when the sound cut through the air, a sharp rising tone. Free notes repeated again and again. It wasn't the gentle bong of a class change or the low buzz of a docking alert. This alarm made the hair on his arm stand up. The lights over the doors shifted from soft white to pale yellow. Attention, the station, AI said. The calm voice now had a firm edge. Containment system error reported in high security bioscience sector. All students, please remain in current locations. Staff, follow containment protocol 7. Chairs scraped. Conversation stopped. Across the room, a girl with a long, flexible neck froze with her drink halfway to her mouth. Containment, she said. Here, probably just a seal check, someone else answered. They test things. Daniel's heart had already started to beat faster. 17 years without a major failure, Halv had said. That had sounded like a big number. Now, it felt small. The alarm tone kept going. After a minute, it shifted, adding a lower note. Yellow bars slid down over the main doors with a smooth hiss. Lockdown, muttered a human boy at the next table. Serious. Then, what is in high security today? A Nera student asked, eyes wide. I heard they brought in a new apex predator from Thornwald last month. Another replied, voice hushed, calling it a Ravenclaw or something. Mean, fast. They say it can take down armored survey teams. Daniel's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Ravenclaw, the name tugged at something inside him. A mix of fear and curiosity. He had read a little about Thornwald in a late-night trawl through the station library. A forest planet dripping with moss, dark under heavy canopies. Shapes that moved in the shadows. Facting 5. The Ravenclaws were a legend among xenobiologists. Top-level hunters, silent, strong, rarely seen, and never studied up close. His implant pinged softly with network messages as students sent quick texts. A short, sharp voice crackled over the room speakers. This is Security Chief Vaughn. All non-essential movement is now suspended. Repeat, stay where you are. There is no current breach to public zones. We are managing a localized failure. The last part sounded like it had been added on purpose. Daniel looked at the window, From here, he could not see the high security ring, only the slow curve of the station and the deep star field. Beyond, it all looked peaceful, but his body did not believe it. The alarm's tone rattled in his chest. A message came in on his wristband. Class alert, all sessions. Passed. Remain in place. He could have sat there and waited. He tried. He took a bite of stew. It tasted like nothing. A memory rose uninvited. A night back home when a storm had knocked down part of the fence. He had been 10, in the dark, with lightning splitting the sky. The cattle had pushed against the broken section, panicked. His parents had been out checking the far pasture. No one had told him what to do. He had gone out into the storm with a coil of rope and a calm voice. He had spoken to the animals, slow and steady. Even while thunder made his teeth buzz, fear had been shouting in him, but something else had been louder. A need not to let them suffer, not even for an hour more than they had to. Now, in the dining hall, with the sun star burning safely outside and the walls thick around him, that same feeling stirred. He imagined the high security ring, bright lights, glass walls, machines, a being built for the deep shadowed forest, trapped in a small cold box, containment error. His brain tried to argue with itself. The station staff were trained. Security knew what they were doing. He was just a first-year student, a Deathworld kid. Yes, but that did not make him special here. A second alarm joined the first, higher and faster. The room lights dipped and then came back up. Update, the AI said. Multiple containment systems offline in high-security bioscience sector. Structural damage reported. All students, further restrict movement. Stay away from sectors 7 through 9. Repeat. A quiet sound cut into the edge of its words. It came from beyond the far wall, too faint for most in the room to notice under the alarms. But Daniel's ears had spent years picking out the small sounds under big noise. It sounded like crying, high, thin, hopeless. He stood up, tray rattling. Professor Hal's message blinked over his wristband. Are you safe? Remain where you are, he should answer. He should sit back down. Instead, his feet moved. Bathroom, he muttered to no one in particular, even though no one had asked. His legs felt like they were moving through heavy snow. The nearest side door showed a yellow glow, but no lock bar. It slid open at his touch. In the side corridor, the alarm was louder. The ceiling panels flickered. Should 4, a cleaning bot sat still against the wall, lights on pause. The crying sound came again, not from the main hall behind him, not from ahead in the student zone. From below, he knew he should turn around, go back into the dining room, and wait like everybody else. He knew there were protocols, a whole station of experts, but the sound from below sent a sharp twist through his chest. It was the sound of a young thing that believed no one was coming. He could not bear that sound. Just look, he told himself softly. Find the problem. Call it in. You don't have to be a hero. He moved down the corridor, boots light on the floor, His eyes flicked over the signs. Storage 3B, a maintenance. Venton, a small maintenance hatch at knee level, stood slightly open, a hairline gap of darkness between it and the wall. From inside that gap came the crying. He knelt, heart pounding. The hatch had a simple manual latch, half turned, probably jarred loose when the alarms first hit. He eased it open another few centimeters. Two eyes shone from the dark, catching the hallway light. They belonged to a small furred face, flattened against the vent edge. The creature was no larger than a medium dog, but its body seemed built of dense muscle and shadow, black fur, sleek even with dust in it. Long ears laid flat. Two faint lines of bright color ran along its cheeks, pulsing slowly with its fast breath. Behind it, another small body pressed close, two sets of eyes. Now, four tiny pinpoints of fear. The first cub, because that was the only word that fit, made a sound between a hiss and a sob. Daniel's whole body wanted to jerk back, to slam the hatch. Apex predator, part of his mind, yelled, voice borrowed from station rumors. Thornwald. Razor claws. Fast. Dangerous. But the cub did not lunge. It did not bare teeth. It just stayed pressed against the edge. Trembling. He sensed more than saw how their paws dug into the vent grate. He could almost feel the fine claws, meant for climbing thick forest trunks, now scratching metal. "Hey," he said softly. His voice sounded too loud in the narrow hall. He tried again, even quieter. "Hey there, it's okay." The nearest cub flinched at the sound, then stilled, pupils huge. Ravenclaws, he breathed, half to himself. So the rumors were true. At least two, and young. If the cubs were here, then their parent. His stomach dropped. A parent separated from children would be frantic, hurt, maybe. Alone in a station full of alarms. A whole academy full of people afraid of monsters. "Student," the corridor speaker crackled. "Return to designated safe zone. This area is not approved." Daniel ignored it. His animal sense, built from years of watching, feeding, patching up wounded things on Earth, took over. He made himself smaller, hunching his shoulders just a bit, lowering his head. No direct stare. Predators could read that as challenge. He flattened his palm on the floor, fingers spread, the way he had done with that half-wild dog that had wandered up to the ranch 2 summers ago. "It's okay," he said again, calm, as if he and the cubs were alone on a quiet trail. "You're scared. I get it." The implants translated his tone into a soft range that most known species took as non-threatening. The words themselves did not matter to the cubs. The music of them did. The nearest Ravenclaw's ears twitched, just a little. Behind Daniel, boots thudded in the main hall. Someone would notice the open side door soon. Maybe a staff member, maybe security. If they looked in here and saw 2 apex predator cubs jammed in a vent on a day when containment alarms blared, Daniel saw it. Stun darts, force fields, hard hands dragging the cubs away. a parent kept elsewhere, awake with furious grief, if they even kept the cubs alive. He cleared his throat, heart hammering. Okay, he told the cubs and himself at the same time. This is not good, but we can make it better. He looked at the hatch frame. Just big enough for a small human to squeeze through. The vent map hovered in his implant's library, a faint wireframe blueprint. He brought it up with a thought, colored lines traced through the station. The vent, the cubs were in led not only to the dining sector, but past maintenance nodes, electrical junctions, and his stomach flipped again. A maintenance shaft that cut close to the high-security bioscience ring. So they had crawled away from that red zone, away from whatever had gone wrong. Student inside corridor, the AI said. Voice now aimed at him alone. Return to the dining hall. He licked dry lips. Can't, he murmured. He pressed his hand a little closer to the hatch, stopping just short of the opening. The nearest cub sniffed the air, nose twitching. To the AI, he said, There are 2 small Ravenclaws in a vent here. They're scared. I think they're trying to get away. Is there a rescue team coming? A pause. Then, containment teams are attempting to locate all specimens. You are not authorized to engage. That's not what I asked, he said, voice sharper than he meant. The cubs tensed. He softened again. Is there a rescue team for the cubs? Another pause. Longer current priority is neutralization of primary specimen shade. Secondary specimens will be contained as possible. Protocol does not include, he cut the channel, anger flaring hot under his skin. Neutralization. A nice, clean word for killing, for a mother who had done nothing except get caught. He looked back at the cubs. The one in front had a small cut on its shoulder fur, a thin line of dark, slow-moving blood. The scent of it hit his senses, metallic and raw. The cub kept glancing back into the vent steps, as if checking on the other. Hey, he said, listen to me. I'm going to help you. I'm not going to hurt you. Okay, they could not understand his words, but something in his tone sank in. The front cub's breathing slowed, just a little. In his ear, a direct call request blinked. Professor Halv. He accepted, keeping his eyes on the cubs. Daniel Halv's voice came tight. What are you doing near maintenance? The system shows your ID out of bounds. He almost lied. Instead, he said, there are Ravenclaw cubs in a vent near the dining section. I can hear them. I see them. Security says they're focusing on the mother and neutralization. They're not sending anyone here. I can't just leave them. Halv was silent for 3 long breaths. Through the thin speaker he could hear distant noise, shouted orders, the thump of heavy doors. Thornwald, law forbids removal of live Ravenclaws from their world, Halv said at last, voice low. Their presence here is already a crime. If security kills the mother and takes the cubs for study, that crime will compound. Daniel's jaw clenched. Then help me get them somewhere safe. You are not trained for this. If the mother reaches you. I know animals, Daniel said. I know fear. I know how to move slow. Please. I can hear them crying. He let that sound carry over the channel, a small broken noise from the vent. Halv inhaled sharply. They are young. Yes, Daniel said. They're just kids. Another voice cut into the channel. Harsh, controlled. This is Security Chief Avon. Student Reed, you are to seal that hatch and back away now. Teams are approaching. Daniel pictured teams, armored suits, stun rifles, maybe lethal rounds if fear ran ahead of careful thought. He heard his grandfather's dry voice in his head. If you see a creature in a trap, you don't stand there and write a report, kid. You get the trap off. Sorry, Chief, he said. Channel off. He closed the call. In the vent, the cubs watched him. Okay, he told them again, barely more than a breath. We're going to get you out of here. Quiet now. He slid his pack off his shoulders. With slow, steady motions, he unzipped it and pulled out the small emergency kit every student carried. Bandage strips, water pouches, nutrient bars. He opened a water pouch and let a single drop fall onto his fingertip. Then he eased his hand toward the nearest cub, palm up, fingers loose. The cub's nostrils flared. It stretched its neck, eyes never leaving his face, and flicked its tongue out over his finger. It hesitated, then took another small lick, this time catching the side of his nail. Its tongue was rough, like a cat's, but its touch shook. Good, he breathed. Good, yeah, that's water. Plenty more if you come a little closer. Behind him, the hall lights flickered again. Distant boots thumped, getting nearer. He had seconds, maybe a minute, before someone reached this side door. Daniel Reed, the AI said, voice sharper now. You are actively ignoring safety instructions. This will result in disciplinary. Log it later, he cut in softly. Right now, log that I am attempting to prevent harm to sentient young. The AI went quiet. Somewhere in its code, a line about sentient and harm must have tripped a different subroutine. He edged the hatch wider and slid his arm through. Up to the elbow, the vent metal was cold around his skin. The cub did not bite. Instead, with a small broken sound, it pressed its forehead to his wrist, just for a heartbeat. Behind it, the second cub, a little smaller with one ear folded, crept closer. Hi, Daniel said, feeling his fear and his care mix into something steady. Daniel, we're going to hide you now. He knew the vent routes. He had seen the map. There were narrow service ways that security would not check right away. Old maintenance closets. Quiet corners of the station that everyone forgot. His choice hardened. He would take the cubs into the vents. He would keep them moving. Ahead of the security teams, he would find a place where they could wait, safe and quiet, until someone like Halv or Warden Tulos could be brought into this in a way that did not start with guns. He would break station rules, risk being labeled a problem, even a traitor, because something in him refused to stand still while small, frightened lives were treated as targets. He shifted onto his side, bringing his shoulders to the hatch. Okay, he told the cubs and the station and himself in coming in. Behind him, the thud of running feet grew louder. Ahead, in the dark vent, 2 young Ravenclaws waited, their hearts pounding fast as his. And somewhere deeper in the station, in a broken lab full of alarms and harsh lights, a wounded mother lifted her head and scented the air, catching a new note in it. Human fear. And something else, not threat, possibility. The vent was tighter than Daniel had guessed. Metal scraped his shoulders as he slid forward on his elbows. Pack pushed ahead of him by his fingertips. The air smelled of dust, old heat from power lines, and the sharp, wild scent of the cubs. They moved just in front of his hands, light and sure on the mesh floor. In this narrow space, their muscles flowed like shadows. Every time the station shuddered from a distant door slam, they froze, then crept on again. "I'm still here," he breathed, nice and slow. That's it. He had named them in his head to keep calm. The slightly larger cub, with the steady eyes and small shoulder cut, was Kira. The smaller one, with the folded ear and quick twitches, he called Lex. They did not know the names. Of course, they did not know the names. Of course, and we cannot. Sound in rejects you did not know. Of course, they and full of queers of a and fold, now and fold and fold. You did not know ship, but when he said, "Good, Kira," the front cub's ears tipped back, as if she understood praise. When he murmured, "Easy, Lex," the tiny tremors in the back cub's flanks eased a little. The alarms boomed, duller through the vent walls. He felt each low note in his chest. Somewhere above, the station moved into a higher state of lockdown. Yellow lights in open halls would be turning to red. Security teams would be sealing bulkheads. And in the high-security bioscience ring, a wounded mother Ravenclaw would be somewhere between fury and terror. He needed to get the cubs to a safe point before the teams found them. His wristband buzzed, trapped between his skin and the vent wall. He managed to tap it with his chin. "Daniel, Professor Halve," said. The voice came through as a soft buzz in his ear. "You cut off security. That was not wise. Busy not being wise," he muttered. In a vent. There was a pause. "The cubs are with you." "Yes." He dragged in a breath, pushing past a tight turn. 2, scared. 1 with a cut. Him taking them toward He pulled up the tiny station map in his mind. Lines and circles. A maintenance hub 2 rings away, just off a service junction. Almost no one used it anymore. Rel had mentioned that most of the cleaning bots there had been rerouted last year. Hub J3, he said. Old maintenance, quiet. Silence again. But this time Halve stayed on the line longer. "This is not in any protocol," Halve said slowly. "But protocol has already been broken by others." "Very well. I will try to clear that hub, mark it as sealed for inspection. That may buy you time." "Thank you," Daniel said. "Listen carefully," Halve added. "Security Chief Vaughn is under pressure. Warden Toulouse is too. High-ranking guests from Thornwald are already sending furious messages. They had no idea their Ravenclaws were here. Hunting the mother will deepen that anger. Toulouse needs proof that there is another way. "I'll get you proof," Daniel said, "but I need them alive to do it." "Then do not die," Halv replied curtly. And Daniel, "Yeah, we will owe you for this." All of us. The line clicked off. He focused on Kira and Lex again. "Left," he murmured. "Good." Now the downslope, the vent dipped, and gravity shifted a little. The cubs handled it easily, padding along. Daniel slid on his stomach, knees bumping pipe joints. A sharp clang rang through the metal, ahead and above. The cubs flinched, fur puffing along their spines. Daniel closed his eyes for a second, visualizing the map overlay. That sound came from a side vent that fed directly into the high-security ring. They were close. His skin prickled. He moved more slowly, hand by hand, until the vent opened into a junction box, a metal cube where several tunnels met. Thin stripes of different colors marked their rims. The cubs had already crammed themselves into the corner, shoulders pressed together, noses lifted. They were scenting the air. He smelled it a heartbeat later. Blood. Not the thin, quick blood from Kira's small cut. This was heavier, darker, with a chemical tang under it that reminded him of burned circuits and panic. His throat tightened. "Your mom's clothes, isn't she?" he said softly. Kira made a sound he had not heard yet. Not the broken cry from the dining level, a low rising note full of pain and need. Lex answered with a tiny version of the same sound. They were calling. "Shh," Daniel breathed. "Easy. She's looking for you. But there are other people looking for her too." Through the vent metal, he heard a different noise now. The stomp of armored boots, the whine of powered exosuits, voices hard and clipped. "Anything moves that isn't tagged, drop it." "Yes, Chief." Vaughn. Daniel's pulse hammered in his ears. If the security team reached this junction before the family did. Was a paeon Daniel's pie? Hey. He did not know how bad it could get, but his body knew it would be bad. He had to move quickly, but every part of him also screamed that rushing in a predator's space was the worst idea. "Okay," he breathed. "Change of plan, Kira. Lex. We go to her first." The cubs stared at him. Kira's cheek markings pulsed a little faster. "Stay close," he said. He eased into the vent, marked with a thin red stripe. At the edge, that line fed nearer to the bioscience ring. The air got cooler. The hum under his hands changed from quiet utility, buzz, to the heavier throb of big systems. Lights in the vent ceiling flickered red at the edges. They slid around another angle, and then the vent simply ended. A solid mesh screen blocked the way. Beyond it, dim emergency lights lit a narrow service corridor. A door on the far end stood partly open. Smoke curled from its edge, and in the middle of the corridor lay a shape that filled almost every bit of space. The Ravenclaw mother. Daniel's breath caught, even crumpled. She was huge. Bigger than a lion from his childhood books, longer than a cow, with a body that seemed built from sleek muscle and coiled strength. Black fur drank in the dim red light, broken only by bright stripes along her sides and face. Those stripes glowed faintly like embers. She was breathing hard. Each rise of her ribs looked like work. A collar lay snapped in two pieces near her head, its lock twisted and bent. One leg was pinned under a chunk of ceiling panel. Wires sparked faintly nearby. Her sides bore burns where containment fields had hit her. A long gash along her flank oozed dark blood that spread slowly across the floor. Daniel almost forgot to be afraid. He had seen big animals before. Bison, bears, a moose that had wandered too near the fence. But this was different. The sense of power around her was like standing too close to a waterfall, or at the edge of a lightning strike. She was also very clearly in pain. Her head jerked up, nostrils flaring. Her eyes, deep, reflective, gold green, snapped to the vent. Kira and Lex made those low, urgent calls again, pressed to the mesh. The mother's whole body went rigid. Then, with a sound like tearing metal, she tried to rise. The pinned leg held her. She snarled, a raw, ripping noise that made Daniel's insides twist. She snapped at the panel, teeth flashing white, claws pounding. The metal groaned, but did not move. "Stop," Daniel said before he could think. His voice came out firm, like he was talking to a panicked horse. "Stop. You'll make it worse." The Ravenclaw's eyes whipped to him. Until that moment, she had looked like an animal in pain. Now, staring at his face, she looked like a thinking being who had just realized there was something new in the room. Her nostrils flared again, pulling in his scent. Human. Deathworld. Strange. Her lips peeled back, showing long fangs. A low, warning growl filled the corridor, building as if to a pounce that could not reach him only because of the metal and the distance. Kira and Lex squealed at the sound, pressing harder to the mesh. They were so close they could touch noses through it, but the barrier held them apart. The mother's growl changed, split with a note that hurt Daniel's chest. She was calling to them, counting them. He almost heard it in his bones. "You are alive. You are here. You are hurt. You are not with me." He made himself breathe. He did not move suddenly. He did not raise his hands high. He had perhaps 5 seconds before fear made her do something wild. "Look at me," he said softly. "Not them, me." It was a ridiculous thing to ask of a huge predator, but her eyes did lock on his again. He thought fast about what Grandpa had taught him on the ranch. An angry mother is scared more than mad. Grandpa had tried to gore a vet. You show her you're not taking her calf, and you might live. He made his posture as plain as he could. Arms low, palms open toward her, fingers spread. No stiff shoulders, no direct, hard stare into her eyes. He looked at her face, then just slightly down and off, then back like he had done with nervous dogs. His heart pounded so hard he tasted it. "Kira," he said, pointing with a low movement to the front cub. "Lex," he pointed to the back cub. "They've been with me." I kept them moving, away from the loud things. She could not know the words, but she could see his hands, hear his tone. He risked one more thing. Slowly, with hands shaking, he reached through the vent mesh and laid his palm on Kira's back. Kira jumped, then settled under the touch, fur warm and quivering. Lex pressed close, half under Kira's neck. The mother watched his hand on her child. Every muscle in her body trembled with held violence. Her jaw flexed. Claws scraped the floor, inches from her pinned leg, but she did not lunge. Instead, she drew a breath so deep it seemed to pull the heat from the air. The glow strips along her face brightened, then dimmed. She let out a sound that was not a snarl. It was shorter, sharper, almost like a question. "What do you want?" Daniel whispered back, not expecting an answer. She shifted her head, just a little, so that her eyes flicked from his face to his hand on Kira, then to the crushed panel pinning her leg, then back to him. He stared. "That's it, isn't it?" he said. Amazed. "You want me to get them to you?" And maybe he looked at the panel. Help with that. Behind him, a faint thud came through the vent from somewhere farther down. He heard Vaughn's voice again, distorted by metal, but still sharp. "Sector 7, sub-corridor sealed. Primary specimen still unaccounted for. Move." They were close. Daniel had minutes, at best. He pulled his hand back from the cubs and slid closer to the mesh, until his face was almost at the grid. "Okay," he told the mothers softly. "Listen. Security is coming. They're scared of you. They think you're just..." He stopped himself from saying monster. "A danger," he finished. "If they find you like this, pinned and in pain, they'll shoot first." Her growl rose at the harsh tone in his voice. He softened again. "I don't want that," he said. "I want you and your kids alive. I want to get you all out of this." Her ears twitched. The glow at her cheeks flickered. He could not tell if she understood his words, but something in his tone made her pause. He pushed his luck. Very, very slowly, he lifted his right hand through the mesh and stretched it toward her. Every nerve screamed that this was stupid. She could bite his arm off at the wrist. He left his hand open, palm toward her nose, fingers loose. His arm shook. "For you," he breathed. Not a threat. The corridor was so quiet between alarm pulses that he could hear the tiny scrape of metal on fur as Kira and Lex shifted. Watching, the Ravenclaw's head lowered by centimeters. She sniffed once, loud and sharp, pulling his scent deep. Her lips lifted again. Her teeth touched the air. Just a handspan from his skin. He did not flinch. His body wanted to. Every muscle locked. Sweat slid down his spine. He thought of the bear years ago, and how he had stood still, giving it room to pass. He thought of the coyote pup in his hands, ribs showing eyes dull, and how his soft voice and warm palm had meant food and safety, he thought of the sound of Kira's and Lex cries in the vent. "Am not your hunter," he said under his breath. Stoop it out, fast over the very edge of his palm. It was like being touched by live sandpaper. Then, very carefully, she pressed her nose to his hand. The contact was brief, no longer than a heartbeat. But it was a choice, not to bite, not to strike, to test. Kira made a soft, eager sound. Lex wriggled. The mother's head lifted again. Her eyes were different now. The wild, spinning fear in them had tilted, just slightly, toward focus. Daniel swallowed. "Okay," he whispered. "That's our window." He pulled his arm back and looked at the mesh bolts. Standard vent screen, basic locks. He fumbled in his pocket for the small multi-tool he had carried since he was 12. Grandpa had given it to him for fence wire and emergencies. He punched out the tension pins on the mesh. Jaw clenched. He caught it so it wouldn't ring on the metal. He slid the screen sideways just enough for Kira and Lex to squeeze through. They did not dart for their mother. They stepped out, one small paw at a time, pressed against his forearm as they passed. Fur brushing his skin, they were trusting him to be between them and the open corridor, at least for a breath. His chest tightened. "Go," he murmured. They shot forward as soon as their feet hit the corridor floor, streaks of black and bright cheek marks. Kira reached her mother first, throwing her small body against the huge neck. Lex tumbled in right after. The sound that came out of the Ravenclaw mother then did not fit any human word. It was a rumble, a hum, a soft, rough cry, joy, relief, pain, all tangled together. She curved her head, pulling them in with her chin, nosing them, checking them, licking the small cut on Kira's shoulder. Her big body trembled. For a moment, nothing existed for her but the feel of them. Then her gaze snapped back to Daniel. He was halfway out of the vent now, one leg still inside, one foot on the corridor floor. The air felt thin. "We're not done," he said. "You still can't move," a distant voice shouted. Closer now. Reading motion inside corridors 7B. No more time. Daniel scrambled the rest of the way out of the vent and dropped to a crouch. The floor was slick with a thin smear of Ravenclaw blood. He forced himself not to look too closely at the wound. The crushed panel pinning her leg was thick, webbed with cables. "Okay," he told her. "I'm going to try something. It'll hurt." She bared her teeth. He set his shoulder against the edge of the panel and pushed. Nothing happened. He reset his feet, braced harder, pushing with everything. His muscles strained. The panel groaned a centimeter upward, and then slammed back when he lost leverage. The mother hissed, more from instinct than real damage. Kira and Lex clung to her neck. "This is pointless," he gasped. And not. His wristband blinked again. "Daniel," Halva's voice cut in, "you are too far into the restricted zone. Security is closing around you." "I found her," he panted. "She's pinned. I got the cubs to her." She tolerated me. Can you shut down the field in corridor 7B and open a service hatch on the far side? I need a pressure drop or a disc burning, or an assist on this panel. There was chaos in the background on Half's side. He heard Vaughn's harsh tone. Tulas Calmer 1. Give me visual, Tulas' voice said now. Daniel's wristband projection snapped on without his command, sending a feed of the corridor to whoever had override. He did not have the focus to care who saw him, covered in alien blood, shoving against broken station parts beside a massive apex predator. A new voice slid into the channel. Calm, firm, Tulos. Student Reed, the warden said. Step away from the specimen. Teams are en route. You have done enough. Dio, no, Daniel rasped. If they come in with guns, shall fight. They'll shoot. Everyone will lose. Protocol demands. Vaughn started. Protocol already failed, Daniel cut in, surprising himself with the sharpness of his tone. She and her cubs should never have been taken from Thornwald. Your specimens are a family, not lab equipment. He dug his feet in again and pushed. This time there was a faint hiss from the floor. I have just dropped magnetic lock on that panel. Half said quickly, push now. Daniel shoved with everything he had. The panel jerked up another few centimeters, then another. Just enough. Move, he shouted. The mother slammed her claws into the floor and yanked her leg. Blood smeared over metal as she dragged it free. The panel crashed down, rattling the corridor. She lay there, panting, her freed leg shaking. The fur around it was soaked and twisted at a bad angle, but at least it was no longer trapped under solid metal. Daniel staggered back, bracing himself on the wall. Good, he managed. Good. You're free, the Ravenclaw's gaze fixed on him. He had just helped with her injury. He had brought her children. He had also witnessed her weakness. She studied him for 3 slow heartbeats. Then, with a low sound that was almost like the one she had given when she pressed her nose to his hand, she stretched her head forward, closer than before. Every instinct told him to move. Aside, he did not. Her nose touched his chest, right over his racing heart. The weight of her skull made him rock back on his heels. She drew in another deep breath, taking his scent in fully, as if writing it into some inner list. Not enemy, strange alley. Pack helper. Kira and Lex watched with wide, gleaming eyes. Boots pounded at the far end of the corridor. Target sighted, a voice shouted, Ravenclaw and unauthorized human in 7B. Daniel flinched, turning his head. A squad of armored figures filled the doorway. Visors down, rifles up. The Ravenclaw mother's ears snapped back. Her fur bristled, her body tensed to spring, even with the bad leg. No, Daniel yelled, throwing his arms wide and planting himself between her and the guns. Don, shoot. She can understand. Lasers from the rifles painted shaky red dots over his chest. For a breath, everything held. Ravenclaw muscle, human nerves, station metal. Stand down, Tula's voice rang in all their ears, boosted through the corridor speakers. Chief Vaughn, stand your team down now. Vaughn's outline appeared behind the front line, visor up, jaw tight. With respect, Warden, Vaughn bit out, that animal almost brought down half the bioscience ring. It is a threat. The boy is a hostage. I will not risk. She had her children taken, Tulo said, voice hardening. By smugglers using this station's name, by scientists who broke Thornwald law. She is not the only threat here. Halv broke in sharp, and she has not killed the student who entered her space, freed her leg, and returned her cubs. That suggests she is more than a mindless beast. Kira pressed against Daniel's leg for damp. Lex crept halfway behind his boot, but kept one eye on the guns. Vaughn hesitated. The muzzle of his rifle dipped a centimeter. The law is clear, he said. Unauthorized apex predators on a station are to be terminated. I cannot. The law of Thornwald, Halv shot back, states that removal of live Ravenclaws from their world is a crime against a sentient people. Their representatives are on a direct channel right now, Chief. Care to explain to them why you are killing a mother whose family was stolen? There was a flicker on Daniel's wristband. For a second, a Thornwald figure appeared there. All dark forest colors and serious eyes, speaking fast in a tongue the implant struggled to keep up with. Violation of pact. If you harm her further, Helix 7 will answer for. Tulo's cut the feed, but only after Vaughn had heard enough. The security chief stared at the Ravenclaw, then at Daniel, then at his own team. His shoulders dropped a fraction. Lower weapons, he snapped. The squad obeyed, rifles dipping. The mother Ravenclaw did not relax. Her whole body was coiled to leap at the slightest wrong move. Daniel could feel the tremor of it through the thin air between them. Warden, he said quietly, looking at Tula's hollow on his wristband, let me talk to her. Let her see you're not going to hurt her or the cubs. She needs a different story in her head than cage and pain. You cannot talk to her, Vaughn scoffed. You do not share a language. Daniel half turned, keeping his body between the Ravenclaw family and the guns. I don't need words, he said. I just need them not to point weapons at her while we try. Tulo studied him through the tiny hollow. There was tired pain in the warden's eyes, and something else. A thin line of hope. You are already far past what any sane station policy covers, Tulo said, at last. But so are we. Proceed, Daniel Reed. You will not be blamed alone if this fails. Comforting, Daniel muttered. He turned back to the Ravenclaw. Her breath still came short and rough. Blood pooled under her bad leg. Kira and Lex were pressed along her side, bright cheek marks glowing softly. Hey, he said gentler. You did it. You kept them alive. They're here. No one is grabbing them now. He lowered himself slowly until he was sitting on the cold, bloody floor, as small and unthreatening as a human could be. He drew his knees up a little, not to guard himself, but to show he was not leaning forward to attack. He extended one hand, palm up, toward her nose again. Behind him, he heard Vaughn swear under his breath. The mother's head dipped. This time, she did not hesitate. She pushed her nose into his palm and held it there for a whole, shaking breath. Her whiskers tickled his skin. Her hot breath washed over his fingers. Kira stepped over his ankle and rubbed her cheek along his forearm. Lex, braver now, sniffed his knee and gave it a quick, rough lick. Daniel laughed once, a short, stunned sound. "Yeah," he said, voice wobbling. "Hi, we're kind of family now, I guess." He lifted his eyes to Vaughn and the others. "You see that?" he said. "She's choosing not to hurt me. She had plenty of chances, and the cubs aren't scared of me anymore." Fats trust in memory. Halv's voice came over the channel, softer now but steady. "We have recorded this entire interaction. Emotional context signals are clear. Vocalizations, body language, controlled response to new stimuli. Warden, this matches sentient level complexity. At the very least, it demands we treat her as if she could understand our choices." Tulos nodded once in the tiny hollow. "Agreed." Vaughn looked like he had swallowed a handful of nails. "We still have a wounded, powerful creature in a fragile station corridor." He ground out. "We let the boy walk her around on a leash?" "No," Daniel said quickly. "You build a safe space. A temporary habitat, somewhere quiet, with lights and air closer to Thornwald's forest. Somewhere she and the cubs can heal and talk to us. Through behavior, if not words." "You are a first-year student," Vaughn said. "You do not dictate security plans." "Am not trying to," Daniel answered. "Am just telling you what animals do when they're pushed, and when they're given a chance. I've seen both ends. Fear makes bites. Safety makes upsh." He glanced at the Ravenclaw pressed against his hand. Her eyes had shifted from hard gold to a softer shade. She made a low sound, not quite a purr, but close. Kira and Lex mimicked it, smaller notes. Tulos' voice cut through. "Chief Vaughn, Professor Halv, begin drafting a safe transport and habitat plan. I will speak with Thornwald representatives about immediate legal cover. No further shots, no further force, unless she attacks without cause. That is," Vaughn started. "An order," Tulos said. Vaughn's jaw worked. Then he saluted fist to chest. "Yes, Warden." The squad began to back away. Step by slow step, weapons still lowered. The tension in the air did not vanish, but it loosened a little. Daniel let out a breath he had not known he was holding. He turned his head carefully toward the Ravenclaw. "Okay," he said. "You heard that tone, at least. Less shouty now. That's good. We're going to move you, if you let us. Somewhere better than this metal hall. Trees would be nicer, I know, but we'll do our best." She watched his mouth as he spoke, as if trying to fit meaning to the sounds. Then she shifted her huge head and bumped his shoulder. Just enough to rock him. He blinked. It felt like an answer. Daniel Halv said quietly in his ear, "Can you walk with her if we lower a mobile field around the whole group? It will look like a cage, but it will be soft field only. no burn. For the comfort of others, he thought of how the mother had clawed at the first collar field that hurt her. He shook his head. Not a hard cage. It'll trigger everything in her. Maybe a light line. Markers on the floor she can see but cross if she needs. And no one crowds close. You are asking us to trust an injured apex predator to walk freely through our station, Vaughn said flatly. You're not trusting her, Daniel said. You're trusting me and Kira and Lex. Want you guys? Kira pressed against her mother's neck again. Then, against Daniel's, sighed, tail flicking in a short, tight joy. Lex climbed clumsily over his foot, then settled half on his boot, half on the floor, as if claiming him. See, Daniel said. It was not science, not yet, but it was something else that the station had not expected to see here, in the red-lit corridors of a containment crisis. Family, rearranged, trust starting in the smallest, most fragile choices. Very well, Julo said. We do this your way for now. But any sign that she cannot hold back, I know, Daniel said quietly. Then you do what you have to. I think she can hold back if we don't push her too hard. He turned back to the Ravenclaw mother. Can you stand? He asked her softly, even though he knew she did not know the word. He touched her good shoulder, then made a slow lifting motion with his own body, acting it out. She watched, eyes sharp. Hira and Lex tugged at her fur, small claws kneading her neck, making tiny, urgent noises. After a moment, with a low grunt, she planted her front paws and heaved herself up. She almost fell. Her injured leg shook so hard it barely held weight. Daniel moved without thinking, sliding his shoulder under her big head as she swayed. Her jaw could have closed on his skull. Instead, she rested some of her weight there. Breath hot on his cheek. Yeah, he said, voice shaking. And proud all at once. That's it. Lean. I got you. The corridor stretched out ahead, full of red light and wide, staring eyes. Behind them the dark vent yawned, still smelling of dust and panic. Between those two spaces, for one long, careful moment, a human and a wounded predator took their first steps together. Kira trotted at Daniel's other side, cheek brushing his hand. Lex bounded just ahead, pausing every few meters to look back and make sure both the big shapes behind were still coming. Security stood aside, uneasily. Cameras watched, data recorded. On Helix 7, a monster hunt had become something else. A moral problem. And, step by slow step, a chance to unlearn what dangerous was supposed to mean. The temporary habitat did not look like much from the outside. It was just a curved section of ring, sealed off with thick clear walls and a double set of doors. Security scanners lined the entrance. Yellow holos flashed. Tempori habitat. Restriked. Aces. But inside it felt like a small piece of a forest had been carefully set down in the middle of a space station. They had done it fast, In 2 days, work crews had stripped a disused cargo bay and rebuilt it. Gravity was lowered a little to match Thornwald's softer pull. The lights were dim and green-tinted, set on a slow cycle matching the forest worlds. Long day and night. The air smelled like damp soil, and plants, tall growth racks held layers of moss, ferns, and thick-leafed vines grown from cloned Thornwald samples. Artificial trunks, rough and wide, reached up toward the ceiling. Hidden nozzles misted cool water now and then, so a fine spray hung in the air like fog. Kira and Lex loved it. Daniel watched from the observation platform as the cubs darted up and down one of the fake trees. Their black fur melted into the shadows, cheek-mark stripes flashing when they peeked out. Kira balanced on a high branch, tail lashing, then pounced down on Lex. They tumbled in a pile, biting gently, claws sheathed. Their play looked wild, but the sensors Halv had placed on the tree trunks showed low impact, no real harm. Near the center of the habitat, on a thick bed of moss, Shade lay with her head up, eyes half closed. Her side still bore healing scars. Her bad leg was wrapped in a soft support sleeve the med team had designed. She let the cubs climb over her without flinching. Shade. That was the name the station had given the Ravenclaw mother. At first, Daniel had not been sure about naming her. It felt strange to stick a human word on a being who already had her own sound for herself. But Shade had come from the Thornwald representatives. In their language, the sound meant shadow that guards small lights. Shade was as close as basic could get. It fit. Notice how she tracks both cubs even when her head is turned. Professor Halv said quietly. Beside him, eye line follows one, ear line follows the other. Continuous attention. Insects do not do that. Even simple pack hunters do not do it this way. This is care with planning. Daniel nodded. My mom does that at family cookouts, he said. Always knows where the little kids are, even when she pretends she's not watching. They had been here every day. The first 24 hours after the corridor standoff had been a tight, tired blur. Medical bots had worked on Shade's wounds while Daniel sat in a corner of the new habitat, talking softly. Kira and Lex curled against his legs like nervous cats. Security had wanted to stay inside the dome with weapons ready. Tulos had said no. If you treat her like a prisoner, the warden had told Vaughn, she will be a prisoner. If you treat her like a mother whose rights were broken, she might answer in kind. Instead, only 3 beings were allowed in the habitat without heavy barriers. Daniel, Professor Halv, and a Thornwald representative named Sira. Sira moved, like Shade. Low, sure steps, quiet even on metal. Their fur was a darker gray, with deep green cheek marks, and their eyes held the same sharp watchfulness. They and Shade had spent long hours facing each other, trading sounds. Not real words. Not yet, but patterns. Calls, pauses. They're building a basic code. Halv had explained. Hunger, danger, safe, child, home. It is not just noise. There is structure. Daniel had helped with the simple parts. He had stood beside Shade, hand on her shoulder, while Sira spoke in low, fast Thornwald tongue. When Sierra made the sound for home, Shade's cheek marks had flared bright and her tail had twitched. When Sierra made the sound for lab and cage, Shade's jaw had clenched and her ears had pressed back. Everyone watching had understood that, even without implants. Now, after a week, the room outside the habitat was always crowded. Students, staff, even visitors from docking ships pressed against the clear wall. They came to see the hyper-dangerous specimens that the old data files had warned them about. They stayed to watch a mother do lazy paw, swats at her cubs, roll them in the moss, and nudge them toward a food dish like any tired parent. On Daniel's wristband, a new library entry glowed. Ravenclaw, Thornwald status. Sentient Pie's temporary protection pending full recognition. The word specimen was gone from their file. In its place, under behavior, Halv had written, displays complex family bonds, planning, tool use potential, self-control and capacity for learned trust. Current data does not support prior label mindless apex predator. Recommend provisional classification as sentient pending further cultural contact. Daniel had read that line 5 times. When it first appeared, he had not cried, but something deep in him had loosened. Now, as he leaned on the rail with Halv, watching Kira stalk a fake squirrel drone that Nera engineers had built, he felt a quiet pride he did not quite know how to hold. Behind them, the door hissed. Warden Tulos and Security Chief Vaughn stepped onto the platform. Vaughn looked different than the first day Daniel had seen him on the holo feed. His short hair was still precise, his uniform still sharp, but his jaw was less tight, and the lines at the corners of his eyes had deepened. Tulos gave Daniel a short nod. Student Reed, they said, I trust you are not planning to break into any more maintenance vents today. Not unless they start crying, Daniel said. A tiny smile tugged at Tulos' mouth. Vaughn stepped up to the glass. Shade's eyes flicked toward him, then away. I have reviewed all the footage, Vaughn said. His voice held its usual steel, but something softer lay under it now. You were right. Shooting her in that corridor would have made things worse. Daniel shrugged. It also would have been wrong, he said. But yeah, worse. Vaughn's gaze stayed on Shade and her cubs. I built my doctrine on the idea that unknown predators are always a threat first, he said. Containment, control, neutralization if needed. It has kept people alive on other stations. He glanced at Daniel. I still believe in caution. Still believe in caution. I always will, but there is a difference between unknown and refuse to know. I forgot that. That's what fear does, Daniel said quietly. Back on Earth, people used to shoot wolves on sight. We nearly lost them. Then people watched, learned, changed the law. Now, there are rules, fences, ways to live alongside them. We do not have fences in space, Vaughn said. Daniel nodded toward the habitat. We have glass, we have rules, we have eyes, and we have choices. Vaughn let out a slow breath. I have rewritten the security protocols for Helix 7, he said. Any captured life form now gets an automatic review by a joint ethics and xenobiologic council. No more quiet deals with smugglers. No more unlisted specimens. If someone tries to bring in a Ravenclaw again, I will arrest them instead. Good, Halv said. Their lower eyes softened. That is a start. Tulos folded their hands behind their back. The Galactic Academy Council has also responded, they said. After a very loud set of messages from Thornwald, Daniel turned. Loud how Tulas' eyes glinted. Their council called this a crime against a people with claws. They demanded Shade and her cubs be returned at once under apology. They also threatened to pull all Thornwald data access if we did not change policy. And, Daniel asked. Tulas' gaze went back to the habitat. Shade had risen to her feet, limping only slightly, and was watching them now with calm, bright eyes. And we agreed, Tulos said simply, the Academy Board has voted. From this day, Ravenclaws are recognized as a sentient species with rights. Any research must go through Thornwald's own science councils. No exceptions. Daniel felt that looseness inside him again, like a knot letting go. So he said, we're sending them home. Tulos nodded. Yes, a fast escort ship leaves in 2 days. You will be on it. He blinked. Me? Professor Halv will lead the scientific side. Tulos said. Sira will speak for Thornwald. And you, Daniel Reed, will be the living proof that humans from deathworlds can do more than shoot and take. Their voice warmed a little. You started this. It is fitting you see it through. Also, he added, looking uncomfortable, Shade will not board any craft unless you are present. We tried to walk her into a test lock yesterday. She stopped and refused to move until the cubs dragged her back toward your last scent trail. Daniel's ears went hot. She trusts me, he said. I guess. Trust is a heavy thing to carry, Halv said gently. But you carry it well. Sira joined them, stepping in from the side door, with barely a sound. Their implant translation gave their rough flowing words. A calm tone. Shade wants forest air, real night, real ground. Shade seemed to sense Sira's presence. She padded closer to the glass, Kira and Lex at her heels. Her eyes found Daniel's. He pressed his palm to the clear wall. She leaned her head forward until her nose almost touched the same point on the other side. For a heartbeat, all the people watching faded away. There was just the thin barrier, the soft scrape of her breath fogging the glass, and the memory of how her nose had felt pressed into his hand in the red-lit corridor. We'll get you home, he said. I promise. Her cheek-marked stripes brightened. Kira bounced up, slapped both front paws playfully against the glass, where his hand was, then tumbled backward with a little trill. Lex pounced on her tail. Laughter rippled through the observation room. Tulos straightened. Prepare for transfer, they said. 2 hours to pre-launch. The escort ship, the Silver Finch, waited in Dock 3. It was not large, but it was fast and well-armed. This time, though, its cargo was not weapons or data crates. Its main hold had been refit as another mini-habitat filled with the same plants and trunks as the station dome. Daniel stood at the base of the loading ramp in a clean academy jacket, clutching a small duffel. His heart skittered between excitement and worry. Mom had called as soon as she heard. "You're going to another planet," she had said, half proud, half horrified. "Danny, that wasn't in the brochure. It's a short trip," he had told her. "And it'll be with the crew." And numbers of safety things. Grandpa had leaned into the call frame. "Bring back a rock," he had said, "and don't let anything eat you." Now, as the habitat door cycled open, Shade stepped onto the ramp. She moved carefully, testing each surface. The support sleeve on her leg flexed as she walked. Kira and Lex darted ahead, then back, excitement making their cheek marks blaze. Sierra walked just off Shade's shoulder. Daniel stood on the other side. Shade paused once, halfway up, and turned her head to look back at the station through the wide dock window. Helix 7 curved away, white and silver against the dark. Its rings and spokes glowed with soft light. Tiny thruster flares blinked along its spine. Shade's gaze lingered on the section where her habitat sat. A small green glow under the metal skin. Then she looked at Daniel. He lifted a hand, palm toward her, fingers loose. "Come on," he said. "Home's this way." She huffed once, almost like a quiet laugh, and moved forward. The ramp closed behind them with a soft thud. Inside the silver finch habitat hold, things were smaller but similar. Moss trays, trunks, dim lights. The ship's hum vibrated under Daniel's feet. Shade circled once, then settled by the far wall, tail around the cubs. Sierra took a place near her side. Daniel sat cross-legged a few meters away, close enough to be part of the group, but not crowding. "All secured," came the pilot's voice. "Next stop, Thornwald. Hold tight, folks." He felt the shift as the ship disengaged from the dock. For a moment, his stomach fluttered as gravity eased. Kira squeaked and clung to Shade's fur. Lex tried to pounce on the moving feel of down and mist tumbling sideways. Shade rumbled softly, soothing them. Then the drive engaged. The rumble deepened. Stars slid on the big side display. Daniel watched the station drift away. He thought about how he had stepped onto Helix 7 just days ago, alone and nervous, wearing a worn backpack and a hope that maybe, somewhere beyond Earth, people would see more than dangerous human. Now he was leaving with a different kind of family at his side, carrying proof that fear did not have to win. Thinking heavy thoughts, Halv's voice came from the doorway. Daniel turned. Halv settled beside him on the floor without fuss, folding their legs in a way that looked both strange and comfortable. "Just thinking," Daniel said, "about fences and glass, and how small choices turn into big things without anyone planning it." Halv tilted their head. "You mean your choice to crawl into a vent?" "That too," Daniel said, smiling a little. "I didn't think I will change law and policy today. I just couldn't walk away from crying." That Half said, is often how change begins, not with grand plans, with someone saying, "This hurt is not fine," and then acting. They looked at Shade and the cubs. You acted as if she were already worthy of care. The station had to catch up. Shade's ears twitched at the sound of Hal's voice. She blinked, then slowly lowered her head until it rested on her paws. Kira and Lex curled into the curve of her neck, eyes half closed. Sira spoke softly in their own tongue. The implant murmured the translation in Daniel's ear. She says, Sira relayed, that the sky feels wrong, but the air smells kinder. She says the metal den is less tight than the last one. She says she did not expect any two-leg that smells like hot stone to help her children. Hot stone? Daniel asked. Sirah's whiskers twitched. That is how Ravenclaws describe the scent of humans from strong gravity worlds, like rock in summer sun. Sharp heat, but solid underneath. Daniel snorted. Some people just call us trouble. Sirah's eyes gleamed. We will tell our packs that some trouble is useful. They all fell into a quiet that was not awkward. Hours later, silver clouds filled the main display. The planet turned slowly below them, a dark green ball wrapped in gray mists. Deep forest covered most of its land. Patches of lighter color marked clearings and rivers. No bright city lights shone from its night side, only soft, scattered glows where small thorn-walled groups kept carefully shielded fires or tech. Atmosphere is dense, but your suits will handle it, the pilot said over the intercom. Landing in 5, they docked not at a metal port, but at a tall forest tower, grown from living wood and shaped over many years. Platforms spiraled around its trunk. Thick vines hung like ropes. The habitat hold doors opened with a hiss. The smell hit Daniel first. Wet earth. Rich rot. Sap. Sharp. Cold air somehow filled with life. He stepped onto the ramp behind Shade and the others and felt a gravity press, a little softer than Helix 7S. A ring of Ravenclaws waited below. They were not many, maybe 20 in all, but they filled the clearing with presence. Their fur shimmered in the filtered green light. Cheekmark stripes glowed in different patterns and colors: blue, green, orange, soft white. Some wore simple bands of woven vines or bits of polished stone around their forelegs. A few had small tool belts strapped to their sides that held knives, pouches, and devices that looked like a mix of tech and bone. They were not animals in the wild. They were people in their own place. At the center of the ring, a larger Ravenclaw stepped forward. Their cheek stripes formed 3 broken lines, like claw marks, bright gold. They held their head high. Sira dipped their own head. Pack leader, they said softly. We bring Shade home, with her young, and with those who helped. The pack leader's gaze moved over Shade, over Kira and Lex, checking them in a way that reminded Daniel of his own grandfather, counting calves in spring. Then their eyes fixed on Daniel, the weight of that look, almost made him step back. He held his ground. They paced closer, slow, measuring each step the way Shade had done in the corridor. Daniel remembered to drop his shoulders, lower his gaze just a little, keep his hands open and empty. Not submissive, not trying to be a Ravenclaw. Just honest, Daniel, he said quietly. From Helix 7, from Earth. They made a sound, low and questioning. Sira translated. They asked. Sira said, "If you are the soft-voiced two-leg with hot stone scent, who stood between guns and teeth," Daniel's cheeks warmed. Yeah, he said. I didn't like the guns, or the idea of the teeth. I liked the cubs. The pack leader snorted, a sound that might have been a laugh. They leaned in, sniffing him the way Shade had. He held still. After a moment, they pulled back and made a series of quick calls and grunts toward the watching Ravenclaws. U.S. implant took a second to catch up. They say, Sira reported, This human smells of fear and care in equal measure. Their heart beat hard, but their hands stayed soft. They brought our Shade and her small lights out of a metal trap and did not try to keep them. We will not bite this kind. Daniel let out a breath he had not known he was holding. He looked at Shade. She stood a few paces away now, between him and the pack ring. Cubs pressed to her sides. Her eyes were on him. The forest light made her fur look less black, more deep brown-green, like the shadows between trees. He took a step forward, then another. The pack tensed, but no one moved to stop him. When he was close enough that he could see the tiny flecks of lighter color in Shade's eyes, he stopped. Hi, he said softly. Looks better than metal, huh? She drew in a breath, then let it out in a low, rough sound that had no clean, basic word. Gratitude. Farewell. A mix. She took 2 steps forward and did the thing that, even after everything, still surprised him. She pressed her forehead gently to his chest. The force of the touch rocked him back half a step. Her fur was warm and slightly damp from forest air. He could feel the subtle tremor of her heartbeat through his ribs. Kira bumped his leg with her head. Lex wrapped a paw around his ankle, claws just barely out, not enough to hurt. He laughed, choked, and set both hands lightly on Shade's neck, fingers sinking into the thick fur. Yeah, he whispered. You're welcome. Take care of them. Keep them out of trouble. She huffed again, almost annoyed, as if saying, obviously. Then she pulled back. She looked at him one last time. Her cheek-mark stripes flashed bright, then faded to a calm glow. Without drama, without turning it into a big moment, she simply turned away and walked toward the trees, her bad leg still a little stiff, but strong. Kira and Lex trotted at her heels, pausing just once to look back at Daniel. Kira's ears tipped forward, then the forest shade swallowed them. Branches moved, leaves shook where they passed. Then even that faded. They were gone, home. Daniel stood there for a long moment, staring at the place where the trees had parted. Sira touched his arm gently. That was her saying, "You are part of the story we tell our young," they said. not as hunter, not as prey, as strange kin from far sky. His eyes stung. He blinked hard and laughed a little. That's a lot for a kid from Montana, he said. Sirrah's whiskers twitched. It is a lot for anyone, they said. You did not remove the first pain, but you turned our anger toward the right place. That matters. Tulos stepped up beside them, boots quiet on the soft ground. The pack leader has signed the agreement, they said, holding up a slim data slate. Joint research only. No taking live Ravenclaws from Thornwald without their clear consent. Shared data, shared protection. They tucked the slate away. We will send this to every academy station in the network. Their fear will have to fit inside the new rules. Daniel looked up through the tall trees. Their fear will have to fit the tall trees. Light filtered down in green layers. Somewhere far above, the sky was still there. Beyond that, space. Beyond that, the thin curve of Helix 7. Will they listen? He asked. Fear listens to power, Tulos said. This has both. Thornwald has strength. Helix 7 has data and law. And we have you and Shade and 2 very charming cubs on record doing things no mindless predator should be able to do. Halv had walked up on the other side of Daniel. They will listen, Halv said. Not all at once, not easily. But they will. Daniel thought about the students watching the Habitat Dome, the messages from other stations, the new Ravenclaw file in the library. He thought about how just days ago rumors had run around Helix 7 about a hyper-dangerous specimen escaped from its cage somewhere back on the station. A first year from some distant soft world might be pulling up a video of Kira playing with a Nera child through the glass, both of them batting at the same floating toy. That's how it starts, then, he said quietly. Simple ones, Halv agreed. Not slogans. Not fear. Words. Just, there was a human. There was a mother. They did not kill each other when they could have. Tulos smiled, just a little. I would watch that documentary, they said. Daniel chuckled. Maybe somebody is already making it. When they returned to Helix 7, nothing looked different at first. The station still floated above its bright star. The rings still gleamed. Students still filled the halls. But as Daniel walked through the welcome ring again, he felt the small changes. The red on the high-security bioscience label had softened to orange. A new note flashed beside it. Ethics Revidue Active. Near the dining hall, an updated poster listed emergency steps. At the bottom in clear print it said, IN any containment. Report sightings of young or dependent life for priority rescue. In Domes 3, where Tulos had first spoken to his orientation group. A new holo display spun. It showed Shade's temporary habitat, then the forest of Thornwald, then simple icons. A cub, a human hand, a station. Text ran along the bottom. Fear without knowledge makes monsters. Text ran along the bottom, fear without knowledge, no signal. No sorries equals new stories. Daniel stood in the doorway and watched a handful of first years read it. A Nera student turned to a furry Dathri friend. So the human kid actually climbed into a vent with baby Ravenclaws, they asked. That seems intense. The Dathri student nodded, eyes wide. Rel told me about him. Daniel Reed, from Earth, Deathworld, but not all teeth. They both laughed. Daniel slipped away before they saw him. Later in Professor Hal's classroom, the seats were fuller than before. Not just xenobiology students, but those from diplomacy, law, even engineering had squeezed in for the open lecture. Hal stood at the front, 4 eyes bright. Today, they said, we talk about labels. Apex predator. Deathworld species. Hyper-dangerous specimen. These words can keep people safe. They can also be excuses to stop looking, to stop asking what else is there. A hollow of shade, and the cubs flickered above the podium. In the case of Ravenclaws, Halv went on, we nearly let fear do our thinking. We were wrong. A student from a so-called death world helped us see that. They gestured toward the back. Daniel, would you like to say something? Dozens of faces turned toward him. He swallowed, stood, and walked down to the front. His palms were sweaty. His heart thumped. He remembered the first day, sitting alone, overhearing Deathworld. Kid in the hall. Now the same hallways buzzed with talk about Shade, Kira, Lex, and the laws that had changed. He took a breath. I'm not a hero, he said, keeping his voice simple. I just didn't want some kids to die scared and alone in a vent. A low chuckle ran through the room. I grew up around animals. He went on Earth, things can hurt you. Weather, teeth, bugs. If you treat everything like an enemy, you stay alive for a while, but you end up in a small, lonely life. Shooting at shadows, he thought of Shade's nose pressing into his hand. If you stay open just enough to see what's really happening, he said, you notice other stuff. Fear, hunger, families. You learn that a big scary thing might just be a mom with her kids, or a human from a planet. People tell horror stories about who still just wants to belong. He paused. No one shifted. In the crisis, he said, everyone on the station had a choice. Some choices were big, like Warden Tulos telling security to stand down. Some were small, like Professor Halv pushing a few buttons to drop a lock on a panel. Mine was small, too. I went toward the crying, instead of away from it. He looked around the room. I'm not saying you should always run toward danger, he said. Please don't jump into reactors or something and say. Daniel told me to. A ripple of laughter eased the air. I'm saying, he finished, that when you have a quiet chance to be kind, instead of scared, to treat something unknown like it might be worth saving, take it. That's all. He stepped back. Halv nodded. 4 eyes soft. A fine lab report, they said. Simple, clear, tested with actual living beings. After class, students came up to him, not just to stare, Hanera asked. How did you know to lower your eyes a little? Not a lot. A human from a soft gravity world said. I didn't know bears had families like that. Rifam Dathri thumped his shoulder gently. I will never complain about my maintenance shifts again, they said. Vent duty looks different in your stories. Daniel smiled and answered as best he could. Days turned to weeks. Shade's story spread beyond Helix 7. Other stations updated their files. Thornwald researchers shared simple behavior clips. Some people said that treating predators as people was too risky. But now those arguments had to stand next to images of Kira sleeping with her head in a Nera child's lap, a glass wall between them, both of them drooling. Fear had a harder job. On quiet nights, when the station lights dimmed and the star outside burned steady, Daniel would sit by the observation dome and look toward where Thornwald's orbit would be if his eyes could see that far. Somewhere under those deep trees, Shade was moving with her pack. Maybe she was teaching Kira and Lex how to stalk, how to listen to the forest, how to scent danger in the wind. Maybe once in a while, when Kira or Lex stared up at the strange specks of light in the sky and asked about far hot stars, Shade would rumble a story about a metal den, an injured leg, and a scared two-leg with hot stone scent who had put his soft hand on her child and not hurt her. Maybe, in their own words, they would tell their cubs, sometimes the stranger is not a monster. Sometimes the stranger is family you didn't know you had. On Helix 7, a quiet boy from a death world walked the halls and fed the stations, small animals in the greenhouse, and still talked softly to himself when he felt out of place. But fewer people crossed the hall to avoid him now. Some walked beside him, and in the station records, in the neat lines of the Academic's official report, the containment incident with no casualties now had an extra note. At the bottom, observation gentle behavior under fear conditions produced better outcomes than foresees. Reamend. Teach this. Daniel smiled when he saw that line. He did not know what the next crisis would be, or what strange, sharp-edged beings he might meet in the years ahead. But he knew this. He would listen for the small sounds of crying under the loud alarms. And if he could, he would run toward them.